Ella Summers lived in Maplewood, a quaint little town where everyone knew each other. The town was filled with charming houses, old oak trees, and a main street that looked like it was straight out of a postcard. Ella had always loved the simplicity of her life in Maplewood. Until her 16th birthday, the day started out like any other. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and Ella was excited to celebrate her special day with her two best friends, Lily and Jack. They had planned to spend the afternoon at the local ice cream shop, followed by a movie marathon at Ella's house. It was supposed to be a perfect day, but then Aunt Clarice arrived. Aunt Clarice was not like the other adults in Maplewood. She lived in a big, mysterious house on the edge of town, filled with strange artifacts and old books that no one dared to touch. She traveled a lot, always coming back with odd trinkets and bizarre stories. Ella liked her aunt, even though she found her a bit odd. But this time, Aunt Clarice brought something that would change Ella's life forever. "Happy birthday, my dear Ella," Aunt Clarice exclaimed as she entered the Summers' cozy living room, her arms filled with colorful packages. "Thanks, Aunt Clarice." Ella smiled, giving her aunt a quick hug. She eyed the packages with curiosity, wondering what strange gift her aunt had brought this time. After the usual cake cutting and singing, it was time for gifts. Lily and Jack gave Ella a new book by her favorite author, and her parents gifted her a beautiful necklace. Finally, it was Aunt Clarice's turn. "I've got something very special for you, Ella," Aunt Clarice said, with a twinkle in her eye. She handed Ella a small, ornately wrapped box. Ella opened the box slowly, revealing a delicate silver bracelet. It was simple but elegant, with tiny, intricate engravings that shimmered in the light. "Wow, it's beautiful," Ella said, genuinely impressed. "It's not just beautiful, my dear. It's magical," Aunt Clarice whispered, leaning in close. "This bracelet is enchanted. Whoever wears it must follow any command given to them, no matter what it is." Ella chuckled, thinking her aunt was just playing around. "Sure, Aunt Clarice. Thanks for the gift." But as soon as she slipped the bracelet onto her wrist, Ella felt a strange sensation, a tingling that ran from her wrist up to her arm and then through her whole body. She shook it off, thinking it was just her imagination. The rest of the day passed in a blur of laughter and fun. Ella, Lily, and Jack went to the ice cream shop as planned and enjoyed their favorite flavors. But every now and then, Ella caught herself glancing at the bracelet, feeling an odd sense of unease. It wasn't until the next morning that Ella began to understand the true power of Aunt Clarice's gift. Ella was in the kitchen, helping her mom with breakfast. Her mom was busy frying eggs when she suddenly asked, "Ella, could you pass me the salt, please?" Without thinking, Ella's hand shot out and grabbed the salt shaker, handing it to her mom. But it wasn't just the action, it was the way her body moved, almost as if it wasn't under her control. She shrugged it off, thinking she was just being weird. But then, a little later, when her dad asked her to grab the newspaper, the same thing happened. Her body moved on its own, obeying the command without any hesitation. "Ella, can you bring me my keys from the table?" her mom asked again. Ella's legs carried her to the table before she even realized what was happening. A cold shiver ran down her spine. "What is going on?" she muttered to herself, staring at the bracelet. Over the next few days, Ella's life started to spiral out of control. Every time someone asked her to do something, her body would automatically obey, even if she didn't want to. It was as if the bracelet had taken over her free will. Her friends began to notice the changes too. At school, Lily asked her to lend a pencil, and before Ella could even think, her hand was in her bag, pulling out a pencil to give to Lily. "Ella, are you okay? You seem different," Lily asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "Yeah, I'm fine," Ella lied, forcing a smile. She didn't know how to explain what was happening to her. How could she? It sounded crazy even to her. But things really took a turn for the worse when Amanda, the school's notorious mean girl, discovered Ella's secret. It happened one afternoon in the school hallway. Amanda had been watching Ella closely, sensing something odd about her. "Hey, Summers," Amanda called out as Ella was walking to her next class. Ella turned around, dreading whatever Amanda had in store for her. "Why don't you carry my books for me?" Amanda said with a smirk. Before Ella could protest, her hands moved to pick up Amanda's books, and she found herself following Amanda down the hallway like a servant. Amanda's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in satisfaction. "Interesting," she murmured. From that moment on, Amanda made Ella's life miserable. She would command Ella to do the most ridiculous and humiliating tasks, like singing loudly in the cafeteria or cleaning Amanda's shoes in front of everyone. Each time Ella's body betrayed her, obeying the commands despite her desperate attempts to resist. Ella felt trapped, ashamed, and completely alone. She couldn't bring herself to tell Lily or Jack the truth. How could she explain that a magical bracelet was controlling her every move? As the days went on, Ella became more and more desperate to find a way to break the spell. But with Amanda now holding power over her, she knew that escaping this nightmare was going to be much harder than she ever imagined. Ella's life had become a daily battle. With every command, her will seemed to slip further away, and Amanda's relentless torment only made things worse. But Ella was not one to give up easily. She knew she had to find a way to break free from the bracelet's curse before it completely consumed her. One evening, after a particularly humiliating day at school, Ella locked herself in her room and began to think. The bracelet wasn't just some ordinary trinket. It was enchanted. And if it was enchanted, there had to be a way to break the spell. That night she stayed up late, scouring the internet for anything related to magical artifacts, curses, and legends. Most of what she found seemed like nonsense, but one story caught her eye. It was a tale about a powerful sorcerer who lived centuries ago. According to the legend, this sorcerer created a series of enchanted objects, each with its own unique curse. But the story also mentioned that the sorcerer left behind clues in his writings on how to break these curses. Ella's heart raced as she read on. The clue to breaking her bracelet spell was hidden in an ancient book, rumored to be in the town's old library. The library was rarely used anymore, a relic from a bygone era, dusty and forgotten by most of Maplewood. But for Ella, it was the first glimmer of hope she'd had in days. The next day, she couldn't wait to tell Lily and Jack about her discovery. They met up after school, as they usually did, but this time, Ella had a plan. "I think I found a way to break the curse," Ella said, her voice a mix of excitement and anxiety. Lily and Jack exchanged glances, concern etched on their faces. "Are you sure about this, Ella? I mean, it sounds pretty out there," Jack said, trying to be the voice of reason. "I know it sounds crazy," Ella admitted, "but I've done the research. There's this old book in the town library. It might have the answers we need." Lily put a reassuring hand on Ella's shoulder. "We're with you, Ella. If there's even a chance this could work, we'll help you." And so their quest began. The next morning, they arrived at the town's old library, a towering building made of red brick with ivy crawling up its sides. The heavy wooden doors creaked as they pushed them open, and a musty smell greeted them as they stepped inside. The library was eerily quiet, with only the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the distant rustle of pages turning. They approached the front desk, where an elderly librarian sat, peering over her glasses at them. "Good morning," Ella began, trying to sound confident. "We're looking for a specific book. It's very old, and it might have something to do with magical artifacts." The librarian raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything at first. After a moment, she nodded and pointed to the far corner of the library. "You'll find the oldest books in the back. Be careful, though. Some of them haven't been touched in years." Ella, Lily, and Jack made their way to the back of the library, where the shelves were filled with thick, leather-bound volumes covered in dust. The atmosphere felt different here, more ancient, as if the air itself was heavy with secrets. They searched for what felt like hours, scanning titles and flipping through pages until finally Ella found it. The book was old, with a faded brown cover and gold lettering that had nearly worn away. It was titled The Sorcerer's Secrets. "This is it," Ella whispered, her fingers trembling as she opened the book. Inside, the pages were filled with strange symbols, cryptic writings, and illustrations of various enchanted objects. It didn't take long for Ella to find a section about enchanted bracelets. There, in the middle of the page, was an illustration that looked exactly like the bracelet on her wrist. Ella's heart pounded as she read the accompanying text. The sorcerer who created the bracelet had indeed left behind a clue to breaking the spell. The text described a riddle that needed to be solved to find the sorcerer's hidden lair, where the bracelet could be removed. The riddle was written in Old English, and it took all three of them to decipher it. To free the mind, the path must be clear. Seek the place where the stars disappear. Through the forest, dark and deep, lies the secret you must keep. "The forest, that must be the old Maplewood forest," Lily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The place where the stars disappear. Maybe that means a cave or somewhere underground," Jack added. Ella nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We have to go there. It's our only chance." The next weekend, they prepared for their journey. They packed flashlights, snacks, water, and a copy of the riddle. Ella's parents thought she was just going on a hike with her friends, but in reality, they were about to embark on a dangerous quest through the old Maplewood forest. The forest was vast and dense, with towering trees that seemed to block out the sun. As they ventured deeper, the air grew cooler, and the sounds of the town faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the occasional call of a distant bird. Despite their fear, they pressed on, following the clues from the riddle. The forest grew darker as they went, and the path became less defined. At times, it felt like the forest itself was trying to stop them, with thick roots and tangled branches blocking their way. But Ella was determined. Each step forward felt like a victory, a step closer to freedom. Lily and Jack stayed by her side, their friendship and support giving her the strength to keep going. After what felt like hours of trekking, they finally found it, a hidden cave nestled at the base of a rocky hill. The entrance was narrow, almost invisible beneath the thick foliage, but there was no mistaking it. This was the place where the stars disappeared. The cave was cold and dark, with walls that seemed to close in around them as they ventured deeper. But at the end of the tunnel, they found a small chamber illuminated by a faint, otherworldly glow. In the center of the chamber was a stone pedestal, and on it lay an ancient scroll. Ella carefully unrolled the scroll, her breath catching as she read the words inscribed on it. It was a final riddle, a test of her resolve. Only the one with a heart so true can pass this trial and see it through. Speak the words with courage strong, and the curse will be undone. Ella closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. She knew what she had to do. Taking a deep breath, she spoke the words that came from her heart. I am more than this curse. I am stronger than the fears that hold me back. I choose to be free." As soon as she finished speaking, the bracelet on her wrist began to glow. The light grew brighter and brighter until Ella had to shield her eyes. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the light vanished, and the bracelet fell from her wrist, clattering to the ground. Ella stared at the bracelet, hardly believing it was over. She was free. Lily and Jack rushed to her side, cheering and hugging her tightly. Tears of relief and joy streamed down Ella's face as she realized that the nightmare was finally over. But even as they celebrated, Ella knew that this was only the beginning. The journey had shown her that she was capable of so much more than she ever imagined. And with her friends by her side, there was nothing she couldn't face. The relief of having the bracelet removed didn't last long. Ella, Lily, and Jack had only just begun to comprehend the weight of their success when a new, even darker challenge emerged. Unbeknownst to them, Amanda had been lurking in the shadows, watching their every move with growing envy and resentment. She had followed them into the forest, hiding just out of sight. And now, as they made their way out of the cave, she was ready to strike. The sun was setting as they emerged from the forest, the sky painted with shades of pink and orange. Ella was tired but elated, her mind buzzing with the realization that she was finally free. They planned to return the ancient book to the library the next day, believing their journey was over. But as they stepped onto the familiar path that led back to Maplewood, they were met with an unexpected and unwelcome surprise. Amanda stood in the middle of the path, her arms crossed and a wicked smile playing on her lips. "Well, well, well, look who finally showed up," Amanda sneered, her eyes gleaming with malice. Ella froze, her heart pounding in her chest. "Amanda, what are you doing here?" Amanda's smile widened as she took a step forward. "I've been watching you, Ella. Watching you and your little friends stumble around like fools, thinking you could keep this all to yourselves. But guess what? I'm smarter than you think." Before Ella could react, Amanda lunged forward, snatching the ancient book from her hands. The shock of the sudden move left Ella momentarily stunned, and by the time she realized what had happened, Amanda had already opened the book and begun flipping through its pages. "No!" Ella cried out, reaching for the book, but Amanda quickly stepped back, holding it out of reach. "Stay back, Summers," Amanda hissed, her tone dripping with arrogance. "You have no idea what kind of power this book holds, but I do, and I'm going to use it to make you pay for every single time you've embarrassed me." Lily and Jack moved to stand by Ella's side, ready to defend her, but Amanda's laughter stopped them in their tracks. "You think you can stop me?" Amanda taunted. "You might have gotten rid of that bracelet, but the power is still in here." She tapped the book with a manic gleam in her eyes. "And now it's mine." Ella's mind raced, trying to think of a way to get the book back. She knew the dangers of messing with the sorcerer's magic. Amanda didn't, but before she could come up with a plan, Amanda began to chant one of the spells from the book. Her voice grew louder, more forceful, as the words echoed through the trees. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but then the ground beneath them began to tremble. The air grew thick with an unnatural energy, and the sky, once serene and beautiful, darkened ominously. A fierce wind whipped through the forest, tearing at their clothes and throwing debris into the air. "Amanda, stop!" Ella shouted, her voice barely audible over the roaring wind. "You don't know what you're doing." But Amanda was too far gone, consumed by her desire for power. She continued to chant, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and excitement. Suddenly, the book began to glow with an eerie green light, and the ground split open, revealing a chasm that seemed to have no end. Ella felt a surge of panic as the chasm grew wider, threatening to swallow them all. Amanda, realizing too late the gravity of her mistake, tried to stop the spell, but the book's power had taken over. The glowing light intensified, blinding them all, and for a moment it seemed as if the world itself was about to collapse. In that moment of chaos, Ella knew she had to act. She couldn't let Amanda's greed destroy everything. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, her fear replaced by a newfound sense of determination. "Enough," Ella shouted. Her voice cutting through the storm, she focused all her energy, drawing on the strength she had discovered during their journey. "This ends now." To everyone's shock, the green light began to fade, and the chasm slowly started to close. The wind died down, and the sky began to clear. Ella's voice, filled with a power she didn't know she had somehow quelled the magic that Amanda had unleashed. Amanda, now trembling and pale, dropped the book, her bravado gone. She fell to her knees, staring at Ella with a mix of fear and disbelief. How did you do that?" Amanda stammered, her voice weak. Ella didn't answer. Instead, she picked up the book, holding it close. She could feel its power, but she also knew that it was nothing compared to the strength she had found within herself. "You don't need magic to be strong, Amanda," Ella said softly, her voice calm. "True strength comes from within, not from a book or a spell." Amanda looked away, unable to meet Ella's gaze. She had lost both the book and her own sense of superiority. Lily and Jack rushed to Ella's side, relief flooding their faces. "Are you okay?" Jack asked, his voice laced with concern. Ella nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "I'm fine. Better than fine, actually." They stood there for a moment, letting the calm settle around them. The danger had passed, but the experience had changed them all. Ella knew that this was not just the end of their quest, but the beginning of something new. She had learned that the power to overcome any obstacle lay not in magic, but in the strength of her own heart and the support of those she loved. As they made their way back to Maplewood, Ella felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. The journey had been difficult, and the challenges had been great, but she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next. Amanda followed at a distance, her head bowed in shame. Ella didn't hold any anger towards her. She knew that Amanda had been driven by her own insecurities, but Ella also knew that it was up to Amanda to find her own path to redemption. For now, Ella was content to walk beside her true friends, Lily and Jack, knowing that they had conquered the darkness together. The ancient book was safely in her hands, and with it the knowledge that real power came not from magic, but from the courage to face one's fears. And as they walked, Ella couldn't help but smile, knowing that her story was far from over. The events of the past few days had left Ella, Lily, and Jack both exhausted and determined. With the ancient book now safely back in Ella's possession, they knew that the next step of their journey would be the most difficult yet. The riddle that had guided them this far hinted at a final destination, the Sorcerer's lair, hidden deep within the enchanted forest. It was there that they would find the answers they sought, and perhaps the key to understanding the true nature of the bracelet. Early the next morning, they set out once again, retracing their steps to the edge of the forest. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across the ground and painting the sky with hues of pink and gold. The air was cool and crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth. As they entered the forest, the atmosphere grew heavier, the trees towering above them like ancient sentinels guarding long-forgotten secrets. The path was narrow and overgrown, forcing them to move carefully as they navigated through the dense underbrush. The further they ventured, the more the forest seemed to close in around them, the light dimming as the canopy thickened. "It feels different this time," Lily whispered, glancing around nervously, "like the forest knows we're getting close." Ella nodded, feeling the same eerie sensation. "We just have to stay focused. The sorcerer's lair has been hidden for a reason, and we need to be ready for anything." Jack, always the optimist, tried to lighten the mood. "Well, at least we've got each other, and if things get really tough, we can always just yell for help, right?" Despite the tension, Ella smiled at Jack's attempt to cheer them up. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." After what felt like hours of walking, the path suddenly opened up into a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient stone structure, half hidden by vines and moss. It was a small, circular building, almost like a shrine, with a heavy wooden door at its entrance. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, depicting scenes of battles, magic, and mysterious symbols. "This must be it," Ella said, her voice barely above a whisper. They approached the building cautiously, each step feeling like it could trigger some ancient trap. As they reached the door, they noticed a set of symbols engraved into the stone above it. Ella recognized them from the book. They were part of the final riddle they needed to solve. "The last riddle," Ella murmured, pulling the ancient book from her bag. She flipped to the page where the riddle was written. "In the lair of the wise and old, where secrets lie and truths unfold, speak the words that hold the key to unlock the fate that's meant to be." Ella stared at the words, trying to decipher their meaning. It was clear that the riddle was the final test, the last barrier between them and the sorcerer's secret. "We need to figure out what the words are," Lily said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like the riddle is asking us to speak some kind of password." "But what could it be?" Jack wondered aloud. "Something that unlocks the fate that's meant to be." Ella's mind raced as she thought about everything they had been through, the bracelet, the challenges, the betrayals, and the lessons she had learned along the way, and then suddenly it hit her. "The words, they're not just a password," Ella said, her eyes widening in realization. "They're a reflection of what we've learned, of what the sorcerer wanted us to discover." Lily and Jack looked at her, waiting for her to continue. "The bracelet wasn't meant to be a curse," Ella explained, the pieces falling into place in her mind. "It was a test of character, of strength, of heart. The sorcerer wanted to see if the person wearing the bracelet could find the power within themselves to break free. The key isn't some magical word or phrase, it's the belief in our own strength." Ella took a deep breath, feeling a surge of confidence. She stepped forward, placing her hand on the door, and spoke the words that came from her heart. "I believe in my strength. I believe in my friends. I believe in the power within us to overcome any challenge." As soon as the words left her lips, the symbols on the door began to glow with a soft golden light. The carvings on the walls seemed to come to life, the scenes shifting and changing to show a different story, one of courage, friendship, and triumph over adversity. With a low rumble, the door slowly creaked open, revealing the entrance to the sorcerer's lair. Ella, Lily, and Jack exchanged looks of amazement and stepped inside. The interior of the lair was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were lined with shelves filled with ancient artifacts, glowing crystals, and dusty scrolls. In the center of the room stood a large stone pedestal, upon which lay an open book, its pages glowing with a faint ethereal light. Ella approached the pedestal, her heart pounding with anticipation. As she reached out to touch the book, she felt a warmth spread through her, as if the very essence of the sorcerer's magic was flowing into her. The pages of the book turned on their own, revealing the final secret. Ella read the words aloud, her voice steady and clear. The power to break the curse lies not in the object, but in the heart. Only those who have the courage to believe in themselves will find the strength to overcome any challenge. The bracelet was never a burden, but a gift, a reminder that true power comes from within. Ella felt tears well up in her eyes as she realized the truth. The bracelet had never been a curse. It had been a test of her character, a challenge to help her discover her own inner strength. And she had passed that test, not by using magic, but by believing in herself and the support of her friends. As she closed the book, the room began to glow with a brilliant light. The artifacts, the crystals, and the scrolls all shimmered with energy, as if they were celebrating Ella's triumph. The light grew brighter and brighter until it filled the entire room, enveloping Ella, Lily, and Jack in its warmth. When the light finally faded, they found themselves back outside, standing in the clearing. The ancient stone building had disappeared, leaving behind only the memory of their incredible journey. Ella looked at her friends, her heart filled with gratitude and pride. They had done it. Together, they had uncovered the sorcerer's secret and unlocked the true power of the bracelet. "Thank you," Ella said, her voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Lily smiled, wiping away a tear. "We couldn't have done it without you either, Ella. You're stronger than you know." Jack grinned, clapping her on the back. "And now we know that no matter what comes our way, we can handle it together." As they made their way back to Maplewood, the forest seemed to part before them, the path clear and bright. Ella walked with a newfound sense of confidence, knowing that the power to overcome any challenge lay not in magic, but in her own heart. And as the sun set behind them, casting a golden glow over the world, Ella knew that this was only the beginning of her story. With her friends by her side and the strength she had discovered within herself, there was nothing she couldn't face. The days that followed their return from the enchanted forest were some of the most peaceful and rewarding that Ella had ever known. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was free, truly free. The bracelet, once a symbol of control and fear, was now nothing more than a distant memory. With the sorcerer's secret revealed and the riddle solved, Ella felt a sense of lightness she had never experienced before. As she settled back into her daily routine in Maplewood, everything seemed different. The town's familiar sights and sounds now filled her with a renewed appreciation for the simple joys of life. The morning sun streaming through her bedroom window felt warmer. The chatter of her classmates in the school halls felt livelier, and even the crisp autumn air seemed to carry a hint of magic. Ella's newfound confidence didn't go unnoticed. At school, she no longer felt the need to shy away or hide from Amanda or anyone else. She walked with her head held high, a quiet strength radiating from her that surprised even herself. Her friends, Lily and Jack, were by her side, their bond stronger than ever after all they had been through together. But there was still one unresolved matter that lingered in Ella's mind: Amanda. After their encounter in the forest, Amanda had been distant, avoiding Ella and their usual social circles. Ella understood why. Amanda had made a terrible mistake, and now she was struggling with the consequences of her actions. One afternoon, as Ella was leaving school, she saw Amanda standing by the oak tree at the edge of the parking lot, staring at the ground with a troubled expression. Ella hesitated for a moment, but then she took a deep breath and walked over to her. "Hey, Amanda," Ella said softly. Amanda looked up, surprise flashing in her eyes. She quickly looked away, as if ashamed to meet Ella's gaze. "What do you want, Ella?" Amanda mumbled, kicking at a pebble on the ground. Ella could sense the guilt and fear in Amanda's voice. She knew this wasn't easy for her, but Ella also knew that it was important to make things right. "I just wanted to talk," Ella replied gently, "about what happened in the forest, about everything." Amanda sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I messed up, okay? I let my jealousy get the better of me, and I hurt you. I'm sorry, Ella. I don't know why I did it, but I'm sorry." Ella could hear the sincerity in Amanda's voice, and for the first time, she saw Amanda not as the mean girl who had tormented her, but as someone who was struggling with her own insecurities and fears. Ella remembered the lessons she had learned during her journey, the importance of inner strength, self-belief, and most importantly, forgiveness. "It's okay, Amanda," Ella said, her voice warm with understanding. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them and try to be better. I forgive you." Amanda finally looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "You do?" Ella nodded, smiling. "Yeah, I do. I think we both learned a lot from all of this." For a moment, there was silence between them, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that marked the beginning of something new, a chance to mend what had been broken. Amanda wiped her eyes and gave a small, tentative smile. "Thanks, Ella. I know I don't deserve it, but thank you." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Ella replied. "Maybe we can start over, not as enemies, but as, I don't know, maybe friends?" Amanda seemed taken aback by the offer, but then she nodded slowly. "I'd like that." As they parted ways, Ella felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The chapter with Amanda was finally closed, and in its place a new one was beginning, one filled with forgiveness, understanding, and the possibility of friendship. That weekend, Ella, Lily, and Jack decided to celebrate their victory with a small get-together at Ella's house. The three of them gathered in the living room, surrounded by snacks, drinks, and the warmth of friendship. "Can you believe everything we've been through?" Jack said with a grin, munching on a slice of pizza. "It feels like a dream." "It does," Lily agreed, leaning back on the couch. "But it also feels like we've come out stronger because of it. I mean, we solved ancient riddles, faced down magic, and even stopped a crazy storm. We can handle anything." Ella smiled at her friends, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We really can. I don't know what I would have done without you guys." "Hey, we're a team," Jack said, raising his soda can in a mock toast. Ella, Lily, and Jack, saving the world, one magical adventure at a time. They all laughed, the sound filling the room with joy and relief. Ella knew that their bond had been forged in the fires of their challenges, and it was stronger than ever. As the evening wore on, they reminisced about their journey, sharing stories and memories that they knew they would carry with them forever. The fear, the uncertainty, the triumph. It had all led them to this moment, and Ella couldn't have been more grateful. When the night finally came to an end, and her friends had gone home, Ella sat by her window, looking out at the stars. The world was quiet, peaceful, and filled with possibility. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she was ready to face them, not just because of the magic she had encountered, but because of the strength she had discovered within herself. Ella closed her eyes, letting the cool night breeze wash over her. She no longer felt burdened by the expectations of others or the fear of not being good enough. She had learned to live her life on her own terms, guided by the belief that true power came from within. And as she drifted off to sleep, a small smile on her lips, Ella knew that this was just the beginning of her story, a story filled with freedom, forgiveness, and the unbreakable bond of friendship.